Once upon a time, there was a 21-year-old girl named Precious who was very intelligent and kind. Precious was known in her community for her sharp mind and her willingness to help others. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her heart was always open to those in need. She often tutored children in her neighborhood and volunteered at the local shelter. Her kindness was matched only by her love for learning, and she was always seeking new knowledge and experiences. Despite her young age, she had a wisdom about her that made her a natural leader. One day, while navigating the busy streets of the city, Precious met a 24-year-old man named Tony. Their paths crossed in a quaint cafe where they both sought refuge from the bustling city life. Tony approached Precious with a smile. "Excuse me, do you mind if I sit here?" She looked up from her book and replied, "Not at all. It's a free seat." They struck up a conversation that flowed effortlessly, finding they had much in common. After a few more meetups at the cafe and around the city, they began dating. Tony was captivated by Precious's intelligence and kindness, and she was drawn to his warmth and sense of humor. One evening, Tony nervously asked, "Precious, would you like to meet my family? My mother's been eager to meet you." Precious smiled. "I'd love to meet her." Their relationship blossomed, and eventually they got married in a small, joyous ceremony. Tony had a job in the city, so they decided that Precious would live in his ancestral village while he worked in the city. Their marriage was happy, but after 8 years, they had no children. This became a source of great stress for Precious, especially because Tony's mother was always pressuring her. "Why can't you give us a child?" Tony's mother would often ask harshly. "Are you barren?" She even called Precious names, making her feel very sad and lonely. One evening, as Precious was preparing dinner, Tony noticed her quietness. "What's wrong, Precious?" he asked, concern in his voice. Precious sighed. "Your mother. She keeps saying I'm barren. It hurts so much." Tony hugged her and said, "Don't listen to her. I love you, and we will get through this together." One day, feeling overwhelmed, Precious decided to visit the nearby church. She had heard about Pastor Chidi, who was known for his powerful sermons. As she entered the church, she felt a sense of peace. Pastor Chidi was in the middle of his sermon, speaking about faith and hope. After the service, Precious approached him. "Good afternoon, Pastor Chidi. My name is Precious," she said shyly. "Good afternoon, Precious. How can I help you?" he replied warmly. Precious explained how she had been feeling and how much she needed guidance. Pastor Chidi listened carefully and invited her to come back the following Sunday. After several Sundays of attending church, Precious felt more at peace. One day, she decided to see Pastor Chidi and share her troubles with him. "Pastor, I need to talk to you," she said after the service. "Of course, Precious. Come to my office," he replied. Once they were seated, Precious poured out her heart. "I've been married for 8 years, but we have no children. My mother-in-law calls me barren, and it's breaking my heart," she said, tears streaming down her face. Pastor Chidi handed her a tissue and said, "I understand your pain, Precious. Let's turn to the scriptures for comfort and pray together." Pastor Chidi consoled Precious and gave her some scriptures to read. "Read these verses every day and have faith," he advised. "And remember, you can call me any time during the week if you need to pray or talk." Precious felt a sense of relief. "Thank you, Pastor. I will do that," she said. Weeks turned into months, and Precious continued her routine of reading the scriptures and praying with Pastor Chidi. One morning, she woke up feeling different. After visiting the doctor, she found out she was expecting. The news spread quickly through the village, and everyone was overjoyed. "Precious is going to have a baby," the villagers exclaimed. Tony was ecstatic when he heard the news. "I can't believe it. We're going to be parents," he said, hugging Precious tightly. Even his mother, who had been so harsh, was filled with joy. "Finally, I will have grandchildren," she said, tears of happiness in her eyes. Precious felt a deep sense of gratitude and relief. The months of worry and sadness were replaced with hope and excitement. When the time came, Precious gave birth to twin girls, Alice and Angel. The whole village celebrated their arrival. "They're so beautiful," Tony said, holding his daughters for the first time. Precious smiled, feeling happier than she had ever felt. Even Tony's mother couldn't hide her delight. "Thank you, Precious. You've made me so happy," she said. Her voice choked with emotion. The house was filled with laughter and joy as they welcomed the new additions to their family. As the twins grew into lively 9-month-olds, Precious continued going to church. One Sunday, Pastor Chidi delivered a powerful sermon about faith and actions. "Faith without actions is dead," he said passionately. "God has sent me to remind you that we must live our faith through our deeds." Precious listened intently, understanding that her journey wasn't just about having faith, but also about living it every day. She decided to teach her children the same lesson as they grew, ensuring that they would always know the importance of faith and action. Even after having children, Precious wanted to make a lot of money. She tried many ways to achieve her goal, from starting a small business to investing in different ventures, but none of them worked. Frustrated, she decided to see Pastor Chidi to pray for her financial success. "Pastor, I've been trying everything, but I just can't seem to make any money," she said during one of their meetings. "Can you pray for me?" Pastor Chidi nodded. "Of course, Precious. We'll pray together and ask for God's guidance and blessings." Very early on a Wednesday morning, Precious received an unexpected guest. It was Pastor Chidi. "Good morning, Precious," he said, standing at her doorstep. "Pastor, what brings you here so early?" she asked, surprised. "I need to see the children," Pastor Chidi demanded, his tone unusually stern. "Why have you been hiding them from me?" Precious was taken aback. "Hiding them? No, Pastor, it's not like that. We just haven't had the chance to bring them to church," she tried to explain, feeling a sense of unease. Precious hesitated, wondering why Pastor Chidi was angry. They had agreed to keep it a secret and never let anyone know about certain things. "Pastor, please understand we were just trying to keep things private," she stammered. Pastor Chidi was a ritualist, but none of his believers knew. He had always sacrificed the old ladies, but this time around the spirits wanted his own child. Pastor Chidi's eyes narrowed. "I need one child," he repeated firmly. "Pastor, that's impossible. I love them dearly," Precious replied, her voice trembling. But Pastor Chidi didn't back down. "Remember, they are my children too. I have the right to do whatever I want with them," he said coldly. Seeing that his demand wasn't working, Pastor Chidi decided to use faith to confuse Precious. "The Lord has sent me to test your faith, Precious. By doing this, you will receive the huge amounts of money you desire," he said, trying to manipulate her. "You need to boil one of your children in a pot, and without opening it, bring it to the church at midnight." Precious, being a brainwashed believer and driven by her greed for money, was torn, but ultimately agreed. She placed Angel in a pot, covered it, and set it on fire. The pot boiled for some time, and Precious waited for midnight to take it to her pastor. The next morning, Precious started shouting, causing a commotion in the village. "Someone has stolen one of my children," she cried. Neighbors rushed over, eager to help. "We'll find her," they assured Precious, starting a search party. Precious's husband, Tony, was worried and had to stop working to come look for his missing child. "We have to find Angel," he said, his voice filled with desperation. Days and months passed, and there seemed to be no hope. They continued with their lives, haunted by the mystery of who could have taken their daughter. As time went on, the village continued to wonder who could have done such a terrible thing. Precious and Tony were left with a void in their hearts, always questioning what had happened to Angel. They held on to each other, trying to find strength and solace amidst the pain and uncertainty. Precious, now living with the consequences of her actions, had to face the reality of the choice she had made, a choice that would haunt her forever.